Hey guys, this is Tamiya Robles. I am a credit repair specialist, credit repair expert. I'm the owner of FixMyCreditNow850.com, host of podcast Coast to Coast Credit. Welcome, welcome. So today I'm doing a short but informative video on settlement versus bankruptcy. More so, the stress is going to be on settlement as opposed to bankruptcy because I've already done videos on bankruptcies. And if you want to know more about that, I will put the link at the end of the video. Now, settlement, I do have a personal opinion on settling your debt, just like I have an opinion on bankruptcies. I've given my opinion in the videos, but settlements aren't really talked about in my opinion. A lot of you guys, when you have come to me already, credit repair seems to be like your last attempt before you file for bankruptcy. Randomly, you guys might talk about a settlement or you tried to settle some debt and how that worked out for you. But I'm going to actually go into a little bit more detail about it. And then again, at the end of the video, I'll say my opinion on it. But debt settlement and bankruptcies are two drastically different approaches on how to resolve your debt when you're overwhelmed with it. So they each have their own little process and you just go about it differently, but it's just another option people use when settling their debt. So let's get into debt settlement. So debt settlement is also, you could use it, the word negotiation or debt resolution, where you're basically contacting the debtor and you're negotiating the debt and you're agreeing to pay less than what you owe on your debt. So typically it begins with you contacting the debtor, you offering them a lesser amount, you talk about it over the phone. Sometimes you might get something in the mail. I know I've gotten this in the past where if I owed a creditor, they'll send me a letter. And in the letter will be a bunch of different options on how I can pay this back for a lesser amount. So they might divide it into like 4 months, 3 months, two payments. But whatever it is, it's always less than the debt owed. And if you agree to it, then they're looking at that as the debt paid in full. But you settled for less, but you don't owe beyond what you have agreed to. So that's that option. So let me give you another example. So let's say you owe $10,000 in credit cards and with let's say Navy Federal, because everybody has Navy Federal for them or trying to get Navy Federal. So the debt settlement negotiation, how that will work is you would contact them or they will reach out to you offering you a settlement, and then you come to whatever agreement, and they may propose, listen, instead of paying $10,000, pay us $5,000, okay, in one lump sum. Or they could say, instead of you paying us 10,000, we'll settle with 8,000 and you can pay us over 4 months, or you could pay within 3 months, or whatever the case is. But overall, once you pay that lesser amount, we're going to write this off as settled. You're good to go. Boom, you're fine. We're Tahiti now. We're cool. So that's a way of looking at the debt settlement with the original debtor. Now, another option that you may want to consider, some points you may want to consider, is how that does that actually impact your credit score. So debt settlement actually has a major negative impact on your credit report. So what happens is, again, as I mentioned before, your credit report is basically a report card to all banks, all lenders. And it communicates to these individuals by saying you're reporting your debt in a certain with certain verbiage. And one of the biggest issues or red flags, I should say, for you would be to have settlement written anywhere on your credit report. So if you did have that Navy Federal account and you did settle with them, even if you paid it on time, everything's Gucci, that's cool. But once they mark settlement, that's telling all the other lenders that you are not the type of person that could be trusted with other people's money. So if you're giving a loan, you don't pay it back in full. And it's telling everybody that. And it actually hurts your credit score. It's not as bad as a collection. It's not, the drop in your score isn't as um, horrific, but it's still bad. It's still negatively impactful. And if you are a DIYer that needs to fix your credit, I don't care if you're in good standing or not. Any account that has settled on it, get it off your credit report. Remove it. Now, voluntary process. So that's another key point. So debt settlement is a voluntary process, whether they are sending you a letter or if you're contacting them directly. And either way, it's all about negotiation. So even if they send you a letter with options, if you don't feel that you can handle the options that they recommended, pick up the phone, give them a call, and try to negotiate. But that is their way of bringing you in to see, hey, listen, do you want to do something with this debt? Keep in mind, creditors would rather have some money than no money, which is why they're okay with the settlement, but they're still going to let the world know you're not responsible. Okay. Now, another thing to consider is the tax implications. I've had this happen occasionally with some of my clients is the forgiven portion of the debt in the settlement may, not all the time, but it may be considered taxable income, especially leading to a tax liability for the debtor. So what that means for you is, yeah, you might be able to settle the debt. Yes, they may or may not put it on your credit report as settlement, what have you, but this is still a business. This is still a loss. This is something that they can write off. And if they write it off, the IRS is going to be like, okay, so this is written off for them. Then what about you? This is going to be deemed taxable income for you. So keep that in mind. Keep it in mind. Just consider that. Another way you may want to try to resolve your debt without settlement is to see if you can make a payment arrangement on the whole entire amount owed, not less than. That makes a difference. Now, bankruptcy is different. Like I said, I'm not going to get too heavy into the bankruptcy, but bankruptcy is the legal process that is designed to provide individuals and businesses with a fresh start, but it's all legal. So there's different types of bankruptcies. As you know, there's multiple types, but we're most familiar with the Chapter 7 and Chapter 13. That's the most common one. So with bankruptcies, some people come to me again at the last minute and they're like, what should I do? And I give them my suggestion. And then they're like, I'm filing for bankruptcy. And then they regret it later. And then I have to fix the bankruptcy off their credit report. But overall, it involves the court system. So it's a legal process that's overseen by the court as opposed to the debt, the settlement. When you're settling your debt, courts are not involved. This is just a one-on-one agreement between two parties. And once you've come to an agreement, you may sign a contract, but the law is not involved. Okay. So that's pretty important. So it doesn't impact your credit score. Of course, it impacts your credit score. It's not the end of the world. It's going to sound harsh, but it's going to hit you heavy in the beginning. But it's what you do afterwards that is most important. But yes, bankruptcy is going to hit you. It's going to hit you hard. People are going to look at you sideways when they pull up your credit report and then they're showing that you have a bankruptcy. And then you have X amount of accounts that are under the bankruptcy. And then, as you know, with bankruptcies, there's the debt discharge. So bankruptcy can result in the discharge of debt, but credit wise, it's still going to show that you had X amount of accounts that were in bankruptcy. So hopefully you guys understand the difference with the two. Now, what I did want to do is I want to show you some examples on a credit report on which companies you could potentially, not companies you could potentially settle with, but you could, I want to show you a credit report here where these are examples of accounts where this account, for example, it hasn't been settled per se, but you can try and settle this debt. So if they're open to it. So a lot of times before it even gets this far into collections, what this company will do is they'll send out a letter for the balance owed. So this is a past due amount, $573. I don't see them doing a settlement for an amount this low, but I wouldn't be surprised. Usually, when I see settlements, it's usually for much, much higher dollar amounts. Okay. Not a couple $100s. I wouldn't be surprised if you got one, you got one. But yeah. So let me see. This is a pretty bad credit report. The problem with this is like they have a lot of accounts that are a couple $100s only. So this is a balance owed here. In this situation, this creditor may potentially reach out to the client and say, "Hey, are you willing to settle?" If not, then this client can reach out to the creditor and ask to settle this debt. Okay. Now, I want to go into my opinion on both, mostly the debt settlement. Bankruptcies, you guys should already know how I feel. I'm not really a fan. However, I've had some clients that gave me good enough reason as to why they filed for bankruptcy, and I understand it. So it is a matter of choice, but the impact is just so long and people have things to do. And like I stress all the time, this credit repair is not going to last. We're already seeing the beginning of the end of credit repair. So if you can avoid bankruptcy, by all means avoid it and fix your credit. Get the items removed off your credit and then start building credit. Period. Now, as far as debt settlement, I'm against settling debt mostly because of the impact that it's going to have on your credit report. The fact that this is telling all banks and all lenders that you're irresponsible. So I'm going to encourage credit repair. However, if you like the company, for example, or you still want to be in good graces with the company, and I love using Navy Federal as an example because so many people have it, but I've also seen a lot of people that owed Navy Federals and they still wanted to be in their good graces. You want to get the negative off your credit report first, and then you go in to settle. Because once it's off your credit report and then you go ahead and settle, they're less inclined to report that you're paying them again and on time on your credit report. Okay. So remove the negative item first, then you settle. Remove, then settle. I would never settle and then try to get it off your credit report with credit repair. It also makes it more difficult for you to remove the negative item from your credit report if you've already settled the debt. So let me explain it to you. Once you make payments, that's like an agreement. Even if you sign a contract to an agreement, that's an agreement. If you make a payment, that's an agreement. You're not only agreeing to the debt, you're agreeing to how the information is being reported on the credit report to the credit bureaus, to all of the credit bureaus. So if you have settled and the negative item is on your credit report, and then you go behind yourself and get it fixed with fixmycreditnow50.com, or you're doing it yourself, it's going to take longer to get the item off when it probably would have been a simple item to remove because you have already come into an agreement with them prior to getting it removed and you've already made a payment. That solidifies it. So when you go to dispute, especially if you're a factual disputer like myself, and you go into dispute and you're sending it to the credit bureaus, the creditor or the original data furnisher is going to be like, we don't know what this person is talking about. They agreed to this. So it should remain on. So that's another reason why I don't care for it. Now, if it's for a smaller dollar amount and financially you can handle it, by all means. But again, make sure you have it removed from your credit report first. And lastly, I would prefer that you would pay the whole debt again, after you remove the negative item from your credit report. And then you pay the whole debt. And then possibly get the account reopened if you still want to do business with them. So that's my plan. That's my little plan of action for you right there. Hopefully this was helpful. If you have any questions, comments, definitely leave them in the section below. And again, I'll link the bankruptcy videos to this video just so you can go ahead and check it out. If you need your credit fixed, be sure to set up a consultation, 30 minutes, please, free consultation with me. Go to fixmycreditnow850.com for more information on our website. And definitely check me out, YouTube, podcast, Facebook, everything is in the description. In the meantime, I wish you guys the best of luck on your